We need to have a serious conversation about the Toyota RAV4 because the Australian used car market has completely lost the plot when it comes to this thing. Right now, while used car prices across almost every other category are softening, your SUVs, your sedans, your people movers, the RAV4 is holding firm like it's immune to gravity. You can find a 2019 RAV4 with 120,000 kilometers on it, listing for $28,000 to $33,000 on Carsales. $30-something thousand for a car that's been around the block 6 times. And people are still clicking inquire, still showing up on Saturday morning to negotiate over a car that was built half a decade ago and priced like it just rolled off the transporter. That's not a smart purchase. That's a brand tax. At that point, you're not paying for the engine. You're not paying for the transmission or the build quality. You're paying for 3 letters on the tailgate that have become a status symbol in the Australian used car market. And here's the thing about status symbols. They always cost more than they're worth. The 3 SUVs I'm going to walk you through today were built by engineers who cared about exactly what Toyota's engineers cared about back in the early 2000s before any of this got out of hand. Build something simple, build it strong, make sure it doesn't give you a reason to hate it a decade later. These 3 still do that, and because nobody's fighting over them on Facebook Marketplace right now, you can actually afford one. But before we get into the cars, I want to show you the trap, because almost everybody falls into it. Somewhere along the way, Australian car buyers stopped asking, what engine is in this? And started asking, is it a Toyota? You probably do it yourself without noticing. You open up Carsales, you type RAV4. You spend 45 minutes arguing with yourself over whether the 2018 or the 2019 has the better infotainment. Meanwhile, 2 suburbs over, there's a completely different SUV sitting on a dealer lot with the same engineering philosophy, the same capacity for long-term reliability, and nobody's touching it because nobody typed its name in the search bar. That's what happens to these 3. They come in as trade-ins when someone upgrades to something shiny and new. And because they don't carry the badge everyone's chasing, they just sit there. For weeks, sometimes months, quietly being the better purchase, while the RAV4, with the scuffed bumper, gets snapped up before the ink on the listing dries. So today, 3 of them, all under $20,000 AUD for a solid example. All picked because of what's under the bonnet, not what's on it. And for each one, I'm giving you the exact years to target. Because in the used car market, the year matters more than the name ever will. Quick thing before we start, hit like, not for me. So, the next person, comparing a $33,000 RAV4 to a $15,000 alternative, actually sees this before they make a decision they'll regret. Number 3. The Subaru Forester 2019 to 2021. I already know what some of you are thinking. Head gaskets. Old Subaru. Don't bother. That reputation is real, and it belongs to the older engines from the EJ series era, the ones from the late 2000s and early 2010s. The Foresters we're talking about today don't have those engines. The 2019 to 2021 5th generation Forester, what Subaru calls the SK series, runs the FB25 engine. It's a completely different unit. Uses a timing chain instead of a timing belt, which means it's designed to run for the life of the vehicle without needing replacement. That's not a small thing. That's a major cost avoidance item over a decade of ownership. Now here's what actually makes this Forester worth your attention. Every single trim, every single year, standard, symmetrical, all-wheel drive. No exceptions, no upgrade packages, no ticking a $3,000 option box like you would on a base RAV4. It comes with AWD, the way it comes with 4 wheels. It's just part of the car. Subaru's symmetrical system isn't marketing language either. It's regularly held up by reviewers as more predictable than the reactive slip and grip systems you find on a lot of competitors in this class. If you're in regional Victoria, driving to the snow, navigating a wet morning on the M5, or heading out west where the roads get rough, that AWD is working for you constantly rather than waiting to react. The FB25 engine also sits low and wide in the engine bay. It's a boxer configuration. The cylinders fire horizontally instead of up and down. That might sound like a pub fact, but it lowers the car's center of gravity in a way that makes a real difference in corners and on uneven terrain. Visibility in this thing is exceptional. Huge windows all the way around, a high seating position, and a roofline that doesn't choke out your rear sightlines the way a lot of modern SUVs do in the name of looking sporty. 5-star ANCAP safety rating on the 5th generation. Plenty of standard active safety gear depending on which trim you find. And here's the market reality. Subaru sold over 15,000 Foresters in Australia in 2025 alone. There are thousands of them on the used market right now. Parts are everywhere. Any mechanic in the country has seen one. That matters when something eventually needs attention because it keeps costs down. A 2019 or 2020 SK Forester, in good condition, with under 100,000 kilometers, is sitting on lots right now in the $25,000 to $32,000 range. Compare that to an equivalent year RAV4 at $30,000 to $42,000, depending on spec and kilometers. You're looking at the same era vehicle, the same era reliability expectation. A meaningful chunk of difference. That gap doesn't buy you a better car. It buys you a badge. But if you thought that gap was hard to justify, wait until number 2. Number 2. The Mazda CX-5 2019 or 2020. This is the one that genuinely surprises people when they sit in it for the first time. Specifically, we want 2019 or 2020, the second generation that had already been fully sorted after the first couple of production years. And here's exactly why that window matters. When Mazda built the second generation CX-5, they did something almost nobody else was doing in this segment. While every other manufacturer was bolting on small turbocharged engines and CVT transmissions to chase fuel economy numbers on paper, Mazda went the other direction. They took the 2.5-liter Skyactiv G engine, naturally aspirated, no turbocharger, and paired it with a traditional 6-speed automatic, not a CVT. A real automatic transmission with actual gear steps, the kind that mechanics understand inside out, the kind that doesn't have a rubber belt slowly stretching over 200,000 kilometers. Analysis of J.D. Power's reliability scores points to the 2020 CX-5 as one of the most trouble-free model years in the entire CX-5 lineup. The 2019 scores nearly as well. These years represent the second generation at its most refined. Now get in one. Seriously, before you judge it on the price tag, get inside. The panel gaps are tight. The dashboard materials don't creak over potholes. The seats still hold their shape a decade on from manufacture. Mazda was chasing something that felt closer to a European premium vehicle than a Japanese budget crossover. And in the $20,000 to $30,000 bracket on the Australian used market right now, nothing else in this class touches it for interior feel. Not a Honda, not a Nissan, not a base Hyundai. The CX-5 interior makes a RAV4 from the same era feel like a rental car, and it drives like something engineers actually cared about. It handles noticeably sharper than a RAV4. The steering has weight to it. When you need to make a decisive move on a country highway, it responds like a car that wants to be driven, not just transported. One thing worth checking before you hand over money. Find out whether the car has been maintained to schedule. The Skyactiv engine has no major known failure points in the 2019 to 2020 window, but like any engine, it rewards owners who actually change the oil. Ask for service records. If they exist, you're probably looking at a car that will push well past 250,000 kilometers without drama. The reason these are still on dealer lots, while RAV4s get snapped up in 48 hours, is simple. Mazda doesn't spend what Toyota spends on convincing Australians they're reliable. They just build a reliable car and assume the evidence will speak. In this market, that assumption costs them resale value and costs you nothing because you're the one picking it up cheap. For $20,000 to $30,000, you are getting something more enjoyable to drive than a RAV4, and every bit as tough. That's number 2. And now, number 1. Number 1. The Honda CR-V, 2012 to 2014. This one genuinely feels like it's being mispriced. Not just undervalued, genuinely mispriced. Because what you're getting in a clean 2012 to 2014 CR-V sits completely apart from what the market currently thinks it's worth. Here's exactly why that year window is the one you want. Honda had an oil consumption issue in some earlier CR-V models. It affected certain variants before this generation. Then, in the middle of 2017, Honda launched an all-new 5th-generation CR-V for Australia that introduced both a CVT transmission and a turbocharged 1.5-liter engine at the same time, and that new engine developed documented oil dilution problems in cold weather conditions, an issue reported in owners' forums and automotive press. The 2017 and 2018 CR-V's turbo issues are well documented. The 2012 to 2014 CR-V sits in a clean window on both sides of those problems. What you get is the K24 engine. Naturally aspirated, 2.4 liters, 140 kilowatts. Paired with a proper 5-speed automatic transmission. No CVT, no turbocharger, no direct injection carbon buildup. Just an engine that Honda had spent years perfecting before this car even shipped, connected to a gearbox that any transmission shop in Australia can service without ordering specialist parts. Ask any Honda specialist, not a dealer, an independent mechanic who works on Hondas every day, which use CR5, they would send their own family member to buy. Ask enough of them, and the answer comes back the same way, fast and without hesitation, 2012 to 2014, without thinking twice. There's a reason for that. An iSeeCars study found the CR-V is more than twice as likely to reach 250,000 miles than the average vehicle. That's not Honda mythology. That's ownership data across hundreds of thousands of cars. And here's the thing the market hasn't caught up with yet. Most buyers searching for a CR-V just type Honda CR-V reliable and then click on whatever's closest. They don't know about the K24 window. They don't know about the CVT years to avoid. So they end up buying a 2017 or 2018, paying close to the same money and getting a completely different and riskier ownership experience. The 2012 to 2014 doesn't get treated differently. It just gets lumped in with other CR-Vs on the lot, priced between $10,000 and $15,000 depending on kilometers and condition, and left sitting while someone spends $33,000 on a RAV4. That, by the way, has its own documented issues. 2019 was the first year of Toyota's redesigned AWD system on the current generation RAV4, and the higher spec AWD variants from that model year picked up a documented rear differential noise issue in the process. Steering column clunk complaints show up across RAV4 generations too, old and new. A clean 2013 CR-V EX with service history doesn't have those waiting for you. It has a simple engine, a simple gearbox, and a history of doing nothing but driving until told otherwise. That's why it's number one. So, there you have it. 3 SUVs, all available right now in Australia for a fraction of what people are paying for the RAV4, all capable of outlasting it if you choose the right year and treat them right. The Subaru Forester, 2019 to 2021. If you want standard AWD in every weather condition without paying extra for the privilege. The Mazda CX-5 2019 to 2020. If you want something that actually makes you look forward to driving it, a proper engine, a proper gearbox, and an interior that feels a cut above everything else at this price. And the Honda CR-V 2012 to 2014. If you want the simplest, most proven, most bulletproof option of the three, a car that mechanics have known for decades, and that the data backs up at every mileage milestone. The RAV4 isn't a bad car. It's a good car that got turned into something people buy for reasons that have nothing to do with engineering. You don't need to be one of those people. You need the right year, the right engine, and about 10 minutes of homework before you go look at one. And now you've got all three. If this saved you some money, or at least changed how you're going to search this weekend, do me a favor and hit subscribe. Drop a comment and tell me which one of these you're going to go look at first. I read every single one.